and welcome to the TheROCKATX online worship experience. You're getting ready to experience God on another level. Whatever you're seeking from God for your life is available for you as you praise, hear the word, and transform your situation. While you're worshiping with us, feel free to interact with our online ministers in the chat and share this broadcast with your friends and family so they can join you online. Also, make sure you subscribe and follow TheROCKATX on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram to stay connected to all The Rock is doing. Now, shake off the worries of the week and get ready to give God some praise. Service will begin soon.
Now, why did I write this book? I wrote this book because I thought it was so important for us to really understand a few things about our lives and a few things about who we are. But what really pushed me to write this book was the story of Ray Kroc. If you remember correctly, the story of Ray Kroc. We did, if you remember the book or the story of the movie, The Founder. The movie The Founder and Ray Kroc. In that story, in that book, in that movie, it showed the story or kind of the biography of who we thought was the founder of McDonald's, Mr. Kroc himself. And what was interesting about that story was he wasn't actually the founder of the restaurant McDonald's. Actually, he was a traveling salesman who sold milkshake machines. And as he was traveling and selling milkshake machines, one day he went into the restaurant of the McDonald's brothers in a small town in I believe it was California. And he walks in to try to convince them to buy his machine, this milkshake machine. And he walks in, and as he's waiting to talk to the owners, he notices the efficiency of their kitchen. He notices how they're operating and how systematic the kitchen is laid out, and how it's fulfilling these orders quickly. And he has a moment where he says, "Wow, if I had this, what I could do with it." So he gets inspired, and he talks to the McDonald's brothers, and he tries to convince them to work with him on a franchise deal. They initially refused. They initially refused to work with him, and they said they've tried to do the franchising before, but it was too problematic. They could not get the same. Could not get the same product on a consistent basis. It was too hard to manage. It was too hard to set up. It was too hard to train. So Mr. Kroc decided he could deal with them. He says, I will go out, and if I will recruit the owners, I will actually ensure or oversee the construction of the building. I will then lay out the training. And I will then make sure that all the managers and the workers are trained. I will train on all the systems. And if you let me do this, I just want a small piece of the pie. But I'm so convinced about your system that I believe that it will make you and I both rich. So they agree reluctantly, and he goes out and he begins to go all over the country. And before you know it, McDonald's are popping up all over the country, and he is training, and he is overseeing the construction, and he is helping the managers, and he's got this thing popping, and he thinks he's doing well there. I mean, all over the Midwest, things are just popping up, and he's very excited until one day he has a meeting with his accountant. His accountant sits down with him and tells him that when it comes to his financial situation, he's in great danger. He's in poor status. He is not only is he bankrupt, but his house is being foreclosed on because he believed so much in the vision that he put up his own house unbeknownst to his wife. And so now he is in this grave dilemma, and he goes to the bank trying to get loans, and he can't understand why he's in this dilemma. So as he's meeting with his accountant reminds him of the contract. She says that in your contract, what you get is about, I think it's either 2 cents or 5 cents off of every hamburger that's sold. That's what you get. And the cash that was coming in for those sales were not enough to keep him afloat. And so now, even though he was starting restaurants and he was training managers and doing all this work, his cash flow was not enough to keep him sustainable. And he's distraught. He's overwhelmed. And while he's at the bank begging for a loan, a CPA is listening to the conversation. And as he leaves, the person in the bank stops him at the door and says, "Can we meet for lunch?" And and he agrees to meet them for lunch because, of course, they had to pay. And so they meet for lunch, and the accountant, the CPA, the person tells them one thing. He says, and it's just a powerful point, and it resonated with me. He says, "You don't know the business you're in." And he says, your problem is you think you're in the hamburger business and you think you're in the restaurant business. He said, that's your problem. And he says, but you don't realize, he says, you're really in the real estate business. And Ray Kroc was thrown off. What do you mean? He says, I open up restaurants. I train managers. I work on systems. I teach people to sell hamburgers and fulfill orders. And he said, that's your problem. He says, you don't see where the real money is. And so he convinces Ray Kroc to start a real estate business. And in the real estate business, what he does is he buys the land on which they build every McDonald's on. And then they have a lifetime lease. Every restaurant signed a lifetime lease to him that they will pay him in the perpetuity for the land. And so now, as he was making these restaurants, he was building a real estate portfolio that made him a multi-millionaire. And the McDonald's brothers then soon catch wind that they're doing well, but he's doing better. And that he's doing so much better that he changed the contract on them and started charging them more. And he offered to buy them out so that he would now be known as Mr. McDonald's. And literally, reluctantly and begrudgingly, they did, because the problem was they didn't understand the business they were in. Why is this important? Because in this book, what I've learned and what I want to convey to you is that as believers, we don't understand the business that we're in. Most of us believe, even those of you who are streaming in, believe that you are in the business of church. That you believe that you are in the business of religion. You're in the business of literally understanding the Bible. You're in the business of religious education. You're in the business of religious indoctrination. You're in the business of teaching a Christian culture. And that, my friends, is problematic. Why is that problematic? Because as the time changes, the culture changes, which means that if you're in the business of church, you've got to keep changing because the church has to keep changing. And you don't realize that as kingdom citizens, we are not in the business of church. We are literally in the business of real estate.
Well, teach us, sir.
I know some of y'all are looking at me like, what do you mean? What do you mean? I'm going to say it again. As kingdom believers, my premise is we are not just in the business of, in the business of church. We're in the business of real estate. Taking back real estate that the devil took. And when you get that and when you understand that, it should change the way you operate. It should change the way you deal with it. And this is why we call this book Kingdom Jurisdiction. Now, when we look at the word jurisdiction, jurisdiction is a legal term, and y'all got to stick with me for just a minute here, because I got to be nerdy for a little while to pull y'all in. Then we're gonna start out nerdy, and we're gonna end up a whole lot of heavy Bible. All right. So I need y'all to stick with me through the nerdiness, so we can get to the Bible part. All right. And I need you guys to listen. Just pretend like you like what I'm saying. Give me an amen every now and then. Amen. All right, thank you guys. Amen. Listen, and it's so funny. We're so information heavy that sometimes when you like information, you can actually get caught up in the idea of gathering data. But when we talk about real estate business, we got to start moving from gathering data to implementation. Actually, what do we do? The reason why many people don't make disciples is because they're in the business of church. Because if you understand that if you're in the business of taking back what the enemy stole, if you're in the business of real estate, that means every heart that the enemy is lording over is God's real estate that we're called to take back. Am I making sense? That everybody that's under the bondage of sin, we are called to take back. Every person that's struggling with sickness and disease, we are called to take back. Am I making sense? That's what we're called to do as kingdom citizens. We're not called here to monitor how long your skirt is. We're not called to monitor how tight your pants are. We're not here to monitor how often you come to church. We're not here to monitor whether you wear a hat or not. So that's the problem with many of us in church, that after you get in church and you get your position, you think that you're settled because you're in the wrong business. You think you're in the process of, or in the business of, trying to get valued by getting a kingdom title. And that means is that when you get the title, when you become pastor, elder, leader, whatever else, then you've attained all that you need to attain. So then you sit down. Why do you sit down? Because you're in the church business. Why can you not be moved? Because you're in the church business. Why does your giving top off? Because you're in the. But when you're in the real estate business, you're like, we got to gather more real estate and more territory for God. So that means that I always have energy. I'm always giving. I'm always stretching. I'm always sharing my faith. Because everybody that gets saved underneath my leadership is territory that we're taking back. Am I making sense? Okay, I see I'm going to have to work with y'all a little bit tonight. Okay, so let's go. Jurisdiction. Jurisdiction is it's a legal term, and literally it really corresponds to a geographical location with specific boundaries. So when you have jurisdiction, that means you have jurisdiction over a geographic territory from a legal standpoint. That means you have jurisdiction over Travis County. You have jurisdiction over Williamson County. You have jurisdiction over the state of Texas. Jurisdiction from a legal standpoint has geographic boundaries, but jurisdiction also refers to your personal authority to render judgment. So when I have jurisdiction over this area, I have the authority to render judgment. Am I making sense? I have the authority to pass a rule. I have the authority to make decisions and direct consequences when I have jurisdiction. Am I making sense? So now, why is this so important? Because when we talk about issues of jurisdiction, especially in today's church, it's so strange because people say, I don't want nobody telling me what to do. That's because you don't understand jurisdiction. I don't need a pastor. That's because you don't understand jurisdiction. Am I making sense? Making sense. And there is no place on earth that you're not under the guise of somebody's jurisdiction. If you fly from the United States to Japan, when you get off of the plane, you are in the country of Japan's. That means it doesn't matter if your baggage was good enough to get on the plane and be on the American plane and follow the American limits, and your carry-on was the right size when you got on to Japan. when you got onto the plane to get to Japan. Once you get off the plane in Japan, and then you go and you change planes, they can tell you that your carry-on that you flew from the United States to Japan is no longer the appropriate size, and your bag has to be checked. And I watch people argue, say, no, I got on the plane. This is my ticket with this. And I remember we were flying overseas, and we argued once because we had all this equipment. We were going on a mission trip. And we said, no. We got on the plane in Detroit. We left Detroit, Michigan, and we flew here. And this baggage was okayed by the airlines. We don't understand what you're talking about. We got on the plane, and the person looked at us and said, well, you're in Japan now. Am I making sense? See, our problem is when you come to church and you don't understand jurisdiction, you walk into church with a lot of things. I came to church this way. I grew up this way. The problem is you're in the church now. It's a different. Am I making sense? Making sense. You can't come into somebody else's jurisdiction with your own rules. Am I making sense? You don't believe me? Listen. Drive by the sign that says 55 miles per hour, going 90. And then when those little red lights come on behind you and they pull you over, roll your window down and tell them I was in a rush. And watch them, because they have jurisdiction, write you a ticket for speeding, even though you of your own regard had a reason why you operate the way you do. Baby, when you understand jurisdiction, it's going to revolutionize your life. See, many of your the reason why you can't keep a job is because you don't understand jurisdiction. You walk in somebody else's company, talk about what you're not going to do. And Texas is an at-will state, which means they can fire you at will. They ain't got to tell you nothing. I know my rights. Clearly you don't. Jurisdiction, that means that there's a specific geographical location. Am I making sense? That you have the authority to render and make judgments. And listen, and you have governmental backing when you do it. When I have jurisdiction, that means the government backs me. Am I making sense? So that's why the pastor can look at you and say, this is what we're going to do. And you say, well, I disagree with that, pastor. That's okay. The government backs me. Oh, he's getting quiet now. Let me go back. Okay, let's talk about this. Go to my next slide here. It talks about 4 types of jurisdiction. So when we talk about jurisdiction, there are 4 basic types from a legal standpoint. I'm not going to go heavy into this. I'm going to briefly do an overview. Why? Because this is not a legal class, but I just want you to understand the concept of jurisdiction. Number 1, there is subject matter jurisdiction, which means that this court or this judge has the authority to hear cases about a specific subject matter. That means this. That means that's why you have things called family court and criminal court. In family court, that judge and that court, they have jurisdiction over matters of the family. You can't take your criminal case to family court. Am I making sense? And listen, and you can't take your civic case to a criminal court. Your civic case says, I'm looking for some type of monetary benefit or restitution for some offense. Am I making sense? So in the civic court, that's where you get your money. If you want money, you need to be in the civic court. If you're in the criminal court, somebody going to jail, but you ain't getting no money. because the civic court handles things based upon the civic responsibilities of people. The criminal court deals with whether a crime has been committed or not, and then they render judgment. The family court deals more specifically with family. And the reason why they did this, because they wanted specialists in every area. Am I making sense? That means that when you're in family court and that man or woman who gets dressed just like you, who uses the bathroom just like you, who wakes up and goes to sleep just like you and eats just like you, by virtue of their role, that means they are now seen by the government as experts in this subject matter. And you can't get up, I don't care how many Law and Order movies you've seen, I don't care if you've been watching it for the last 18 years, you can't get up talking about, listen, Your Honor, I object. They're going to say, if you don't sit your butt down. It's not going to work for you, because that means that they are the subject matter. Now, that means this. When you come to a church, you're not the subject matter expert in the Bible. That's why you come to church. Why you coming to church and you're arguing with the subject matter expert in the Bible about the Bible? I don't believe in my heart that that's true. No one cares, because you are not the subject matter. Now, here's the deal. If you don't believe that your pastor is the subject matter expert, then change pastors. It's as simple as that. But listen, when you're in their area, they are the subject matter expert. Am I making sense? So now there's subject matter jurisdiction. Now the second type is this.
Thank you for worshiping with us today. If you're in need of prayer or someone to talk to, our online ministers are available for you right now in the chat. And we invite you to join us again for our extraordinary worship services every Sunday at 10:30 a.m., Sunday at 4 p.m., and Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m. Central, where Dr. Moody teaches how to understand the Bible and you can get your biblical questions answered. We look forward to connecting with you and ask that you subscribe to TheROCKATX on YouTube and follow us on Facebook and Instagram to stay connected to all The Rock is doing. Also, you can connect with us through our website at TheROCKATX.org. Again, thank you for worshiping with us, and be blessed.